So, as he mentioned, I'm Alayshia, and I'm from Pulumi. So currently, I work as a customer engineer. So I go out there and I do engineering things for customers. So I would like to talk about this topic for a few different reasons. Not because I work at Pulumi actually, but primarily because ISE is for more than just the typical teams that you think about. So like SREs and infrastructure teams. And I want to talk about collaboration. So hopefully this is a great experience. Somewhere in there we'll do a little demo, and hopefully I get the conversation started. I have zero jokes, but maybe once in a while I may do a few bird calls. I can do that. So to set the stage, there are a lot of just modern infrastructure challenges in general. We all know that. So a tool is a tool, a tool is a tool, a tool is a tool. So you go in and there's growing demands. There's a lot of complexity. One team may want to do one thing. Another team may want to do another thing. Now all of a sudden, because of X, Y, and Z, we're in GCP or we may be in AWS. We may have a team that enjoys using Kubernetes. We may have a team that's using Python, Rust, all of these things. And that's all okay. But because of that growing demand, we want to also be agnostic with what we're doing. So we want our stacks to be fluid as much as possible to have that velocity, but have a bit of structure. So if we're, for example, if we're compliant in any way, we want to make sure we keep up with that compliance. And we want to be stable as well. So a lot of fat fingering and going in and patching and things like that just doesn't really scale well. So what is infrastructure as code? I'm pretty sure a lot of you know what that is, but I also want to level set just in case. But it's just managing that infrastructure using code-based tools. And why should you care? Well, there's a lot of reasons why you should care. Basically because of the things I said before, it simplifies processes and it makes it simple for you to do things. And also there's a very great interesting buy-in in that. So since we're all living in the same space, I can have security, I can have my VP of engineering, I can have whomever understand what we're doing, and we're moving at the same pace. So what is that transformative impact? So the thing that I want to mention that's all the way at the bottom, I want to bring it all the way up to the top. So human error. So a lot of times we go into a development cycle and we found out that something worked, and if it isn't broke, we don't fix it, and then we try to replicate that thing. I've seen millions of times where there's a super team. So there's like some infrastructure, an infrastructure group of some sort. They've built this thing for someone to consume, and they're consuming it the wrong way. They're cloning this repository, expecting the same results. So like, for example, they may be using Bicep, Terraform, Pulumi, or whatever they have, and they may have just, oh, this Terraform code works. I expect it to work for me, and I expect it to do that thing, and it doesn't. Also, the other transformative impact that I really want to grab out of this is that cross-functional teamwork. So I care about my job, and I say that strongly in the sense of when I was in the observability space, it was easy to say, I wanted to observe the things that I care about, and you observe the things that you care about, and together we understand what's going on. Because if your stuff is broke, and the reason why it's broke makes my stuff broke, we have a problem. And so this way we can improve that cross-collaborative effort, simply because everyone can see the thing. I'm sorry. I also do dances, by the way. Oh, my clicky is not clicky. Okay, so I said a lot of mumbo jumbo, but I also want to break it down into just different functions. So SREs want consistency, want reliability, and want enhanced monitoring and recovery procedures. And so which with your IAC, you're not worried about things such as drift, because once you stand up that infrastructure, you know exactly what that means. And if it's in a GitOps process, now it's behind a layer of something. Now, how you do your GitOps process is your business. For some people, they may want to be able to click a button. And for some people, they may have an automated process behind the scenes where they have a catalog of some sort. And based on that, it just does the thing. But now, from an SRE perspective, we're now allowed to minimize that thing. The other good thing is I can give you something. So as an SRE, do your thing. If you're a developer, do your thing. I can just hand you what infrastructure you need, and then you can just empower yourself. Or if you want to do it yourself, you can do that as well. But now I'm not worried about things breaking. The benefits for platform engineers, same thing. You have efficiency with your resource management, and now you can automate that provisioning. So if you have some type of CI/CD pipeline, if you are an avid user of like an automation API of some sorts, whether it's in-house or whether it's the product you're using, you can do that. And so now you can provision based on demand. So let's just say I have a team who needs this thing spent up in a matter of moments. Instead of going through a lengthy process, I can quickly spin those things up. And that also leads to cost savings, because now, besides worrying about drift, we can also put equivalent to like a time to live behind it. I don't know how many people out there have had this issue, but I've had this issue in a previous life where there is a lot of miscellaneous resources out there, whether there was developer machines, whether there are some S3 buckets that someone used simply for some type of research that need to be cleaned up. So now you can clean up those on-demand things as well. And seamless infrastructure scaling. If it works once, you write it well, you tell your friends, you document, you can scale it up. You have to document and write good code, though, just for emphasis there. So the other part is what people don't mention is compliance and auditing. And that's normally depending on your lens, that's normally the boring perspective. But just think if not just regular standard compliance, yes, that. But let's say as a company, we've decided that we need tags on everything. So something as simply as automating your tags and then automating that compliance around checking specifically for those tags or checking specifically for that business context that you're looking for as an organization is very important. And so now you have that automated security and those policies right there. So instead of allowing someone to stand up that infrastructure, you can do a few things. You can tell them, no, you can't stand up this infrastructure, and this is the policy behind it. And if it's in a GitOps way, they can go see that in your repository to see what that code looks like. They can run it locally before they send whatever changes. Or you can say, hey, you can do this with caution. Or you can say, this is an advisory. You have those ways of doing that. And I will show that in the demo as well. And then, like I said, reduce configuration drift, which is a huge issue. You need to know what's going on with your machines. And most times, as a person utilizing your infrastructure, I really don't care what the network should be. Just give it to me, kind of thing. And so with all of this, you have the benefits of enhancing that workflow and the team dynamics. So you have quicker adjustments to your infrastructure. You have to move from AWS to GCP, no problem. You have to go to your infrastructure 2.0, whatever the case it is, no problem. You can do that. In addition to that, it's transparent now. So when this team is asking me what's happening, I can see that. I can also reason about that. I may not be an infrastructure guru. If I put on my developer hat, I may not be an infrastructure guru, but I can tell you, hey, this is not working for me, and this is why. And you can tell me, oh, this makes sense, and we can work together, things like that. And so now we're collaborative in a familiar space. So the whole DevOps concept, as people have been mentioning. So when looking at this from many different angles, there's strategies. how do you tackle that is your business. You have to identify the suitable tool. So whether it's Terraform, whether it's OpenTofu, whether it's Bicep, whether it's Pulumi, whatever that is, go with that. And then from there, you customize it to fit your organizational needs. So for some groups, that may mean I need to create it as a service. So I've personally experienced having certain teams where they don't want to know what's happening behind the scenes. They just want to be able to say, okay, I need a Kubernetes cluster. I need this, this, and this for this resource, and let it do its magic, and that's fine. And then there's some people that want to get dirty into the process, and that's fine too. So just make sure you understand your organization and don't force them in a certain way. So there are times where you may say, we want our group to be agnostic, and they don't care about that. They just care about getting the thing done. So just make sure you're understanding that. And then you can integrate it into your existing workflows. So for some things, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So if you're using GHA with GitHub and all this other stuff, you can still do that. There's nothing wrong with you doing that. Integrate those things. And then just account for those humans involved. Keep in mind that whatever you use is a learning curve. So if you decide to use something that has its own language, just keep in mind that you need to train your team. If you're using anything unfamiliar, you need to train your team. And if you are using something that they know, just make sure they're comfortable and they understand what's going on. Humans are involved here. And so I'm going to tell you about these benefits of kind of getting started in a very simple way. So I would say if you're just getting started with IAC, if you want to get started with IAC, or if you've been and there's gaps, meet people where they are. So a lot of times you can identify a joint pain point. Most times it's something as simple as, I just need a dev machine, please. And it's the longest process ever. Strategize how you can break that down and replicate that up. So start from your dev machines and go to your pre-prod or whatever you're calling them all the way to your production. Or identify some quick services that people may need. Something maybe as simple as, we just want to have a S3 bucket, whatever. Identify that, start there, and show people that value. Once they get that value very quickly, then they can ramp up and do their thing. And they can explore as well to see what else they want. And then kind of understand your end users. Like I mentioned before, not everybody wants to code. Not everybody wants to be a Kubernetes professional. Not everybody wants to do stuff that you assume they want to do. So just make sure that's a part of your strategy. And just stay out of the way. So once you create this beautiful thing and you give people the freedom to do so, just allow them to do that. Behind the scenes, there's always things like permissions, like RBAC, things like that, of course. But outside of that, let people be dangerous. Let them understand what's going on. I'm not saying let them blow up your production machines, but I'm saying let them be inquisitive. So I want to show sort of a demo about how all of this works. So let's do that. So I'll give you some logistics. So I'm going to give you a live demonstration in action. So I'm going to talk about using code in two ways. So that underlying infrastructure, as well as some security policies behind it. But security policies in terms of, as an infrastructure engineer, I want to make sure I have tags on everything, for example. And then I'm going to use Pulumi, I'm going to use AWS, and I'm going to write this thing in Python. And we're going to quickly stand up a development environment. So while I awkwardly move, I'll make a bird call. Okay. This is tiny for me, so I'm pretty sure it's tiny for you. Give me a second. Can you see these things? Okay, bear with me because I'm slightly blind as a bat in certain areas. And so I'm going to talk about some things. I'm going to move over, but I have to come back, if that makes any sense. So to avoid boring you to death with watching me stand up an environment, I stood it up. And I'm just going to walk through certain things and modify it so you can see what that looks like. So I'm going to put on a random hat of sorts. So I don't know, I'm a front-end engineer of some kind. And I just wanted some infrastructure. And my infrastructure engineer threw a template over the fence. So using Pulumi, using Terraform, you have custom modules where you have custom modules, custom resources, all those things where you can take that information and group it. The beautiful thing about that is I can service you in Pulumi. I can give you a template, or I can give you custom resources, and I can service you to say, hey, for this infrastructure, here's the values, or here's the variables. You can switch up, and then it just magically do the thing. I can also say, hi, I have an API. I can hit it that way. I've done things where a basic Slack request comes in, and then based on that Slack request, it hits the automation API, and it just does its magic. So how you do that, how you service your people, is based on you. And so let's just say I stood this up. I did something as simple as a Pulumi up. It gave me this information. I'm not the person that wrote this particular code, so I don't care what this did. I just need to know that I can hit these outputs. So I need to know that I can hit this URL. So this app that I have is called Popcorn. So I have this Popcorn URL that spits out. So keep in mind when you're using IAC, you want to be able to give the people what they need. So for example, if it's something using an application load balancer of any sort, they're going to need that URL. If you're creating buckets, they're going to need that bucket. Whatever you're creating, make sure you're outputting the things that they actually need, and be able to modify the things that they need. So you may not want to be able to allow them to modify the actual network, but you may want them to modify, for example, the instance types or things like that. All that's totally up to you. So that's what's going on this right side. On this left side is some of the code. So I could have written this a million different ways. I could have structured it in a real enterprise scenario. I probably would have sectioned this to say, here's a folder for networking, here's a folder for this, here's a folder for that. But I created something very simple here for the sake of time. So here, as a user, the only thing that I really have to do is change these variables here, or these values. And I have some tags. So as a user, I read the directions. In this scenario, I read them incorrectly. But I read the directions, and it said that I needed to have some tags. And so I have my department as Popcorn. I have my environment as Playground, and I'm the developer, so I put that information, and I wanted to have this tag name here. And that's important because once I launch this, everything is there. So it's basically going to create everything I need in that instance. And so here, I have some config values that is pulling in. I actually have a message in here because I'm doing a very corny application. And I could have either set that, or I just told it to do that, so I didn't set it. And so in here, I'm just creating some groups, and I'm just using the user data to do a thing, to just create a little Nginx there. And the good part is in here, for my developer who doesn't know anything about this IAC thing, I'm actually, since I wrote this in Python, they're able to read this as well because they also can write in Python. I'm setting the tags for them. So under the hood, I'm just using this for loop to propagate these tags for them. So they're not interested in any of this. They're just interested in getting started, right? So it's setting these tags and grabbing items. And if they have additional tags, it's going to set those too. So my user could effectively set whatever I want them to set. So I can create this as a template and allow them to set variables and have additional things, or I can enforce this. It's completely up to me on what I want to do with that. And then from there, it's just outputting the URL for me or for them. And so from there, stood the thing up. If I click on it, it works. Yay, boom. If they want to change things, they can. And so that's the part of the developer experience. So the other cool part is I have a policy in play. So this policy can work two ways. As a local developer, I can run it in this command line, which I'll probably do in a second. But this policy itself, don't mind the red squigglies. It's saying that some things are not installed because I don't think it notices my environment, but that's fine. Here, I'm basically, the cool part is if I go here, I'm looking at tags for my auto-scaling group, and I'm using the same packages that I would use otherwise to understand what violation I have. So here, I'm accepting some arguments, and I'm saying, hey, validate these resources, and I'm using I'm enforcing a policy from a required policy, JSON, which I'll show you in a second. That's basically looking at some tags, checking to see if these tags are there, and it's only looking if the environment is playground. And if it's incorrect, it's going to tell me it's incorrect. And because this is a remediation policy, it's going to auto-remediate. So as a security person, as an infrastructure person, if there's something that I needed, like for example, something as simple as tags, I need it on every machine. If it doesn't exist, I can enforce that based on that group or whatever the case is. And so from here, it's doing a bunch of, it takes that incorrect stuff, looks at that list, and then it appends. And if it's and then from there, it adds it to that list, and then it enforces that remediation. You can do something like that. You can also just do a simple, instead of remediating, hey, this is happening, or with an advisory, which, hey, you need to fix this, but you can still do the thing, or you can just literally enforce it, which stops them in their tracks, kind of thing. And so what that looks like, here's that policy. So if you notice, oh, I hope this doesn't look like crap. Okay. If you notice, these are my tags that I'm looking at, and these are the required tags. The difference between them is that I actually don't have a company here, and my department is not popcorn, it's actually butter, and I'm missing a region or something like that. So I'm going to, from a local perspective, let's just say I'm this developer. If I push this change up, what will happen? I can enforce that. I can enforce that on that developer. So if that developer were to push that change up, it would stop them in their tracks. But I want to be a good developer and see what's going on locally. So I'm going to do what we call a preview. Which doesn't, actually, it shows you before it actually does the thing, kind of thing. Let's see. Policy. All right, so I'm pointing to that policy pack, and then I'm going to say, that's cool. I also need you to point to the config, and bear with me if I Let's make sure that's right. All right, so it's telling me that, okay, Alayshia, you have this remediation tag here, and you're going to have to update this resource. So I previewed it, I'm going to up it, and then I'm going to show you the details to show you I'm not lying. All right, so based on this, it's actually going to, it's telling me, hey, we have to add these fields because they don't exist, and we have to update these from I'm updating this from popcorn to butter. Why that's important? A, because it's a remediation policy, it's going to automatically do that irregardless. But as a security person, as the facilitator of this whole shebang bang, as an SRE person or platform engineer, whomever's facilitating this for you, now they can auto-correct these things using the same code that I showed in the policy. And if I perform this action, it's just going to go and update it for me. So, how much time I have? 3 minutes. Okay. All right. All right, so it updated that thing. I could do the corny thing and show you on AWS, but I only have 3 minutes. Where did my slides go? All right, so in conclusion, so that was a demo. In conclusion, embrace IAC. So if you haven't, please do embrace IAC for a future-ready infrastructure. So as your teams expand, you're going to want to expand your automation. You're going to want to move really fast. For context, the craziest thing I've seen, I work with literally 2 guys who have, I think they have, I want to say they have over 6,000 pieces of infrastructure over 3 different cloud providers, and they use IAC. So you can expand and then start small and then go big. So start with something you know, a pivotal point, a pain point, and then expand from that. And then empower your teams, equip them. So if they want to jump into IAC, let them do that. If they don't, that's cool too. You don't want to stand in their way. And then dive in, have fun. That's it. Thank you.